All right, now is time for our business session. Get these little things right here. According to our table out there, we have 57 registered messengers. And so I promised somebody that we would use this at least once, so we're going to try to. If you will, open your book of reports to page 19. That's where you'll find the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to read over the book of reports as Greg gave that great encouragement for how exciting it is. So you've taken the time to read down through there. But you'll see our minutes from the last meeting. As you're looking over the minutes real quickly, just want to remind everybody, when you do give a motion or a second, please say your name and the church you're a messenger from so that Denise can keep up with that for us. And we want to say a big thank you to her for keeping up with those minutes. So there you have the minutes. If there's no issues or any questions like that, I'll entertain a motion to accept our minutes. Oh, we didn't do that already? Okay, we are officially called to order. So now we will entertain a motion for the acceptance of the minutes. So move, Daryl. Is that who that is? All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Come on now, people, work with me. All right, thank you, Bruce. All right, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed likewise. All right, motion carries. So the minutes are approved. That was the easy one. So you guys work with me here. All right, next we move to the selection of our officers, president and vice president. President is elected to a one-year term, and they are able to serve 2 terms. And so now we will open up the nominations for the office of president. As we do that, I want to start this off. I have chosen not to seek a second term and to remove my name from nomination. And so I would like to put forth a nomination. This past year, I've been able to serve with Greg Payton, and he has done an excellent job. And as far back as I can remember in my activity in Montana Southern Baptist life, Greg has been there. And I think he has the skills necessary to lead us next year. And so I would like to put forward his name as nomination for president of the Montana Southern Baptist Convention. Is there a second? Bobby King, Crossroads. Okay, so Greg Payton has now been nominated. Are there any other nominations? He is serving as our vice president, correct. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close nominations, and Greg will be elected by acclamation. And so that Sharon says that means we clap. All right, now we'll open up nominations for vice president. Okay, so Dr. Randall Jackson has been nominated. Is there a second?
If he agrees to clean up my messes, I will second.
Nominated and seconded. So Randall Jackson's been nominated. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, Randall is elected as vice president by acclamation. I've worked with both of these men, and they will do well in leading us into the future. All right, now we'll have some items that come from either the executive board or some other types of boards. If you will, open your book of reports to page 21 and 22. You will see the proposed budget for this next year. The budget works its way to you through the admin team and then the executive board, and now officially comes to you. We've had a lot of time to talk about all of these individual numbers, and I thank God for people who like numbers. I am not one of those people, but we've had great many discussions about all of this. So as you go down through there, are there any questions or discussion that we need to have, or anything that Barrett would like to explain? He's got a mic.
Thank you. So we are not off our CP giving to the degree that we were. Basically where we are, we're basically back to our 2019 cooperative program levels. We're a little bit ahead of that, but not by a whole lot. But we've definitely COVID has just basically kind of stopped us in our tracks some, but we have recovered to the point where we're basically somewhere a little bit ahead of where we were in 2019.
This does come from the executive board, so it does not need a second. Is there any more discussion? All right, Mike Caulfield, I'll make good on my promise. Hearing no more discussion, if you're in favor, please raise your ballot. All opposed, likewise? Motion carries. Woohoo! Good. All right, the next item of business is on the very next page. You will see the list of committee and board nominees. These come from the Leadership Selection Committee, except the Leadership Selection Committee. That comes from the admin team of the Executive Board. And they have put these forward. So that comes from a committee and does not need a second. Is there any question or discussion? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Who would like to speak to that? Dr. Jones?
I think that's a valid question, and my answer is the removal of him from Southwestern Seminary was highly controversial, to which we still don't know all the facts. And I'm not going to justify anything that's happened in the past. What I am going to say is that he wants to be a friend to Yellowstone Christian College and to Montana Southern Baptist Convention. We had him do our dedication chapel day. He is already working on fundraising for us in several areas. He's a personal friend who can be an advocate for us, or at least for me, as a young president, and he's got a lot more experience than I do. I do think, and this is a personal issue here on my part, so take this with a grain of salt. I know he's got limited years left, and if anyone tells him I said that, I will deny it. But I think he wants to put a positive punctuation on his ministry that he's not been allowed to do because of things that have happened, to which he's been a part of. I'm not going to justify it. But with talking with him over the past 6-7 months about some of those issues, I do think he wants to move forward in life and help us. He loves the West, and he loves Montana, and he's a good fit for us. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to follow up with it.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay? Is there,
Let me just share, unless Dr. Jones wants to speak to that. I echoed these exact same sentiments. There was a really short season where I had to act as president this past whatever, therefore sat on the board of YCC during this discussion. When I saw the email come through, saw his name, thought the exact same thing, and then started to Google it. Obviously, of the majority of Christendom, there's a huge percentage of people that just love Paige Patterson. Unfortunately, those making accusations usually speak the loudest. But I went into that meeting with the exact same tone and question, and I haven't told anyone this before, but I went in a little bullheaded, as if to say, over my dead body would that happen. And after 3.5 hours of discussion and hearing Dr. Jones's heart, I did a total 180, and I'm not ashamed to say that, actually from totally against it to a supporter. And there's a couple of things that I think were important on my scale. One, I don't know what happened, and therefore I won't throw stones. All of us as pastors know that you don't have to be guilty, you just have to be accused, and that in and of itself is a travesty. But the other thing that really hinged me with exactly to your point of who sits on the board. I graduated from the University of Oklahoma and Southwestern, and I have no earthly idea who's on the board for either one of those colleges. Asked my wife the same thing, who graduated from Oklahoma Baptist University, who's on the board. My kids going to Grand Canyon, do you know who's on the board? None of them could even give you one board member's name. So that's a real concern that you have, but the normal college student is not looking at necessarily for those that might be against it. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm validating your concern, but I think the other side of that is 99.9% of the people don't look. And so where I leveled was Dr. Jones has, as Barrett said, we've hired him to carry this banner for a college that we don't, that we're just partners with. This is where the Constitution and bylaws for the Montana Southern Baptist Convention gets a little sticky. The Yellowstone Christian College can kind of do what they want. We just have some prayerful direction, and we participate financially. But the move to Kalispell, the people on the board, he told me, if I can share it, almost with tears in his eyes, praying over this list, saying, I believe that where we want to go in the short-term future, we all know that Dr. Patterson's not going to be on the board for the next 10 years, has not only some of the leadership collegiate skills, but the financial skills to help us move forward in that direction. And I said, if the board voted no, where would that lead you? And he said, I don't know. I just would love to have a chance to ride this. And so I did. I just wanted to, as a pastor, two local pastors say, I did a total 180 in that boardroom. I wish you could have 3 hours with Dr. Jones to hear his heart on that. Unfortunately, we have a timer back there and we can't. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because those are extremely valid concerns, but just from my heart as a pastor.
okay. Any other discussion?
I would just echo that. We hired Dr. Jones, and we want him to lead, and we do. We ought to give him the authority to have people on the board that can help him. I think he emphasized the fact that he could look to Dr. Patterson for counsel, direction, and wisdom, and he needs that. And there's not a man in here that doesn't have things in the past that wish they could have changed. We don't know all of that, but we, I think, want to support Dr. Jones in his choice of having him on the board.
Okay. Any other discussion? Are we ready for the vote? All right, all in favor of passing the committee and board nominees, raise your ballot. Okay, all opposed? Okay, motion carries. Just want to say thank you guys for sharing during that time. So that now moves us to another item of business coming out of the executive committee. You don't have a piece of paper to look at for this one. But last year, one of the things that we did was change and rebrand the Montana Missions offering. We changed that to Reach Montana, and so we changed the name of it. This year, Dr. Duke wanted us to free up that money, I guess is the best way to say it. When we had those 4 different categories, it kind of restricted where he was allowed to spend certain things. And so what he would like to do is to just create 2 buckets of money, one for pastoral emergencies and one for church ministry. And so we as the executive board put this forward as a motion to change that. I guess is the easiest way to say it. Do we want to share anything else about that?
Thanks. So every year since I've been here, we kind of look at the state missions offering and we pick some areas that we would like to make sure we fund. And so we collect the state missions offering, then we divide that up into a number of buckets. It was initially it was going into 4 buckets and then going into 5 buckets. And they're all for really good ministry opportunities, except that kind of what happens is that we only get to spend some of that, a lot of that, as it's turning out, is if somebody asks for some of that money that qualifies for that particular bucket. So right now, we have a lot of designated funds that have been created by the funding of the state missions offering that are just kind of sitting there. Tens of thousands of dollars that are sitting there that are programmed for certain uses that we can't touch unless somebody comes along and has that particular need. So what I've done this year, instead of doing that, is simply asked you to create 2 buckets. The one for pastoral emergencies, you've heard about that one. That's for helping you guys get back to a sick loved one or take care of your own medical emergencies or a death in the family or something like that. The other is we just created a really broad category for it. So the category is evangelism and church ministry. 75% of everything that you give to Reach Montana will go into that bucket for evangelism and church ministry. That means everything, anything that you could want to do in your church that has to do with evangelism or your church engaged in ministry in some kind of way, especially any particular form of outreach. We can pay for it. We can help provide money this way out of this. Now, it's going to cover everything that we've already collected money for, like Native American ministry, collegiate ministry, youth ministry, all of that. All of that falls under the category either of evangelism or church ministry. So as we promote the missions offering every year, we'll highlight a few areas that this money will go to, but we won't force that money only to be available for those particular needs. So it creates more opportunity for us to make sure what you guys give to the state missions offering can actually get spent every year. Because I'm tired of collecting money and then not being able to send it out. So this is a way that I hope will make it easier for me to fund whatever it is you believe God wants you to do in evangelism or any church ministry.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Is there a necessary step to be able to free up, or is there? I mean, do we need to, in the business setting, free up some of those funds so they are usable, or is it? I mean, will they be used as they're currently designated, or do we need to make a shift to make them usable?
Yeah. So the question was, is there a way to get those other dollars out of those very, very narrowly defined buckets? There is, and I will probably be talking to the executive board about doing that. But I don't want to, some of them I want to keep some money in. Some of it is just to let people know we actually care enough that we have some money in some of those buckets. So I wouldn't want to zero out those because I want people to know that there are some areas that we care enough about that we've pigeonholed some money for. But I just don't want to keep throwing more money into those when we're not drawing it out very quickly.
Good. Anything else? All right, all in favor of changing Reach Montana allocations to the pastoral emergencies and then the evangelism church ministry, raise your ballots. All in favor? All right, all opposed? Motion carries. All right, next thing, on page 18 of your book of reports, you see the state convention calendar, all the activities that we have going on. There's been a lot of talk of YCC, Dr. Jones. And so one of the things that we have been able to do over this past year is to see God work in that college. And they have asked that we designate the third Sunday of each October. This year, that will be October 17th, as YCC Day for our Montana Southern Baptist churches. And so what that'll do is put that on the calendar that we can be sharing with our churches about the ministry of YCC. So since that comes from the executive board, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Yeah.
If I could add to that. It's also helping Yellowstone Christian College know that you're all right with them sharing with you about Yellowstone Christian College and encouraging you to take up an offering or ask your folks to share an offering with Yellowstone Christian College. It's just one of the ways that Montana Baptists can help us fund this college that is already making a difference for us in Montana, and they're just getting started. So part of it also will simply put a date on the calendar when Yellowstone Christian College feels like you guys have given them permission to share the ministry of the college with the churches and ask you to consider putting them in the budget or providing a special offering for them.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'm going to make you talk this time. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. All right, motion carries. And then one more item that comes our way is, as Dan Farmer mentioned, his position right now is interim. And so we need to vote officially to make him director of BFM, as the way he said it. And so that comes forward as the nomination, and we just need to vote on it. Is there any other questions that you might have for him before we take a vote? All right, well, all in favor of making it official for Dan Farmer, say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. All right, motion carries, and congratulations, Dan. In the short time that I've worked with him, he's going to do a fabulous, fabulous job. So that takes care of most of the items that we need to deal with. Before we get our break, though, we have a couple of other things that we are wanting to share with you. First off, I'd like to ask Dr. Duke to come up and give a little bit of a report about what he's been up to and things that he feels like you need to hear.
Thank you, Brother KJ. I, for one, am sorry and saddened that you're not going to put in a second year as president, brother. Would you join me in giving a hand to KJ for serving? I'm grateful for you, brother, really am. And your counsel this last year has just been invaluable. Thank you very much. You told me that late. I mean, like really late, like what, a week ago or something like that you weren't going to serve a second term. So we will have a plaque in recognition of your service. I just, unless I carved it out with my little pocket knife on a piece of wood, I don't have anything to give you right now, but we will do an official recognition of your time of service. So my report, I know it's kind of long. It starts on page 4 in your book of ministry reports there, and I know it goes all the way to page 7. A lot is happening in our convention right now. A lot is happening in our churches, and I couldn't figure out what to cut out. And there right now is no word limit on our reports. Yeah, I know somebody will probably make a motion after this that we put a word limit on our reports, but there's no word limit right now, and I'm kind of the guy that gets to decide what goes in these reports, so I got to simply write and write and write. But I did cut a little bit. But you'll notice that as you read through this report, that we've had a really good year. This is a phenomenal year. The first paragraph, you can see we finished 2020, the COVID year, because we cut back our budget, because you continued to promote the cooperative program in your churches, because we did a number of things that enabled us to make sure we had the funds that we needed to operate. We finished 2020, as you can see at the end of the first paragraph, $224,438.96 in the black. I mean, that's pretty good. Yes, indeed. Have a party. Sure enough, yes. So that was just fantastic. Now, some of that was gifts that came in. Some of it was assistance with salaries that we applied for. And some of it was from churches that wanted to fund some particular things that we were trying to get done in the convention, most of it having to do with church planting. And so we collected all that money and then have dispersed it. And you can see about the middle of that the first page on the first side of my report, page 4, how we disperse that money. So you have a report right there that shows the way that money was divvied up. All of it went into really important areas of our ministry, and you can see a good bit of it went into church planting funds. Now, the reason why a good bit of that went into church planting funds is because it was given to us. It was given to us in an unrestricted way, but it was given with the understanding that it would be used to help us with church planting work. And so some of that, as you see in my explanation there, was already kind of given to us with that purpose, and we finally, at the end of the year, we made sure it went there. But one of the things I wanted to do with this money was that I wanted to create balance between our funding for work with our existing churches and funding for our work with our church plants. And so we did that. And what we ended up doing was basically creating a church strengthening fund with $90,000 in it and a church planting fund with $90,000 in it. At least it provides some visual evidence that we are committed to both. We're not going to work existing churches against church plants. We're going to value everything that we do to reach the lost equally. And so I know it's kind of it's kind of just a visual, but I hope that it will also communicate something to all of us, that we want to be about whatever we can do that is honoring to Christ, that helps us reach the lost and make disciples. And so the executive board was in agreement with doing that. You approved the budget already. If you want to go back through that, you'll notice that we have a church planting line item in the 2022 budget. We never had a church planting line item in our budget since I've been here, and I've looked back and I haven't seen one. We've always depended on the North American Mission Board to fund our church planting work. I think we need some skin in the game. We need to show that we as Montana Baptists also care about church planting, and we'll even set aside some of those dollars as they come in for church planting. Now, I know it's not a lot, it's $20,000, but remember, we also set aside $90,000 in a church planting fund. So we are on record as Montana Baptists, as existing churches, that we are also going to fund church planting. We need more churches in Montana, and we need to get behind that as well to reach the lost. I look on church planting as an evangelism strategy. Okay? I know some people look on church planting as competition. I hope that most of us in this room, I hope that all of us in this room don't look at church planting as competition. There are too many lost people in Montana for us to have that thinking about church planting. We're going to do everything we can to evangelize the lost, and church planting gives us an opportunity to do that. Let's see, just a couple other things to point out for your attention. Over on page 5, there were some concerns, and you heard some of that mentioned today about external funding for our work. We did lose our Lifeway funding, but hey, I mean, Lifeway's they're about half of what they were before COVID in terms of their income. So it's understandable that Lifeway just couldn't continue to fund work like they did. NAM was concerned about hits they were going to take, and there were some real concerns whether or not we were going to get any North American Mission Board money for church planting from now on. They were really phasing things back and talking about phasing things back. And in the course of those conversations, in the course of my talking with North American Mission Board representatives, as their willingness to want to continue to do what they can, they actually have stepped up and have funded evangelism work in this state more than they have in the past. And so we are now, for the next 5 years, we're going to get $150,000 a year from the North American Mission Board to help us do evangelism, okay? I mean, yeah, that's good stuff. And that's not just for our church planting, that's all evangelism. Our existing churches, if you're wanting to do an evangelism activity where you will share the gospel in that event, send me a request. I can almost assure you I can help pay for that with money that the Montana Baptists have, but also money coming now to us from the North American Mission Board. You can see how we've kind of broken that down here on page 5, so you can see the areas that we especially want to spend this money in. Next, as you come to the bottom of page 5, I want you to see just how many people you have working in the Montana Baptist Convention in one way or another. And so I created this list of our ministry team. We have a lot of men and women in Montana, a lot of them working voluntarily to help us accomplish all that God wants us to do in the state. And so you have there in front of you most of the leadership in our state. Now, a lot of these leaders have people working with them as well, and there are so many of them, I just can't put them all on paper. You saw the number of guys come up here as Darren was giving his report. I mean, they're not even reflected in this list as well. Lee Merck has a number of guys working with him as well that's not listed on here. But you should be, in my opinion, you should be really excited about the level of engagement of our churches and of our pastors and the people in our pews to want to be about what God wants to do in Montana. So this is a celebration moment, in my opinion, and I wanted you to see that. You heard about the Yellowstone Christian College. I am really excited about the school. You may not know, but before Dr. Jones came, we had students at Yellowstone Christian College, but not one of them was in one of our churches. Yellowstone Christian College had students there. We were helping to pay the bills there, but not one single student enrolled at Yellowstone Christian College before Dr. Jones came was actually serving or even attending one of our Montana Southern Baptist churches. That is changing, and it is changing under the leadership of Dr. Jones. And I want you to know that you're going to be excited about what you're going to see come out of Yellowstone Christian College. You did a great thing with making official, bringing on Dan Farmer. This guy's just brilliant. He's just brilliant. He leads, as you can see in there, he leads the expansion project for Billings Logan International Airport. It's a multi-million-dollar project. Dan is used to working with million-dollar figures. He's the man that we need to help us get the foundation where it needs to be to serve our churches. You've heard from one of our key leaders on staff, Darren. You're going to hear from Lee in a little while. You just have a fantastic staff here, I'm telling you. I know the ladies aren't here yet. I think I see Bree back there. Maybe Jeannie's in the room. Guys, this doesn't happen with Bree and Jeannie and some folks you hardly ever see or ever hear from. This incredible audiovisual staff here doing everything that they're doing, that's all volunteer back there. Those guys, I pay Tanner a little bit. Not nearly what he's worth, but I do pay Tanner a little bit. But for the most part, that's just all volunteer people. We can't get this done without an incredible team behind us. And while they're in the room, would you join me in giving them a hand and thanking them? Thanks very much, guys. I just really am grateful for each and every one of you. You also see that I mentioned in there about the middle of page 7, the Pastor's Wives Retreat. Yeah, that's what I heard. In fact, I heard you want to do that every year. Golly. So we're going to see if we can do it every year, okay? Now, you got to understand, this is not inexpensive, and what I'm worried about is creating an expectation and creating a precedent that the Montana Southern Baptist Convention cannot afford every year forever. But we can afford it now, and we'll continue to do it, provided Denise can actually pull another one together in a year. Thank you for telling her she can do that. But if Denise feels that she can, we will fund a pastor's wives retreat for next year as well, and we'll make the commitment. Darren has said he'll put some of the money that he gets out of the budget toward this as well. We will do everything we can to make sure that we fund a pastor's wives retreat every year from now on. From what I'm hearing, it was just a great opportunity for you ladies to get together. It was just a great experience for you, and we want you to continue to have that experience. You are invaluable to us as well, and so if we can minister to you in this small way, if it was that valuable to you, we're going to figure it out, okay? So figure on hearing from Denise very soon about getting ready for next year's Pastor's Wives Retreat. So you see a couple of banners up here. Go Montana, we've got some materials out there about Go Montana, a resource guide. Pick that up. Pick up all kinds of different ideas about ways that you can be involved in ministering in your community and sharing with the lost. There are thousands of ideas, and we have such a few in that resource guide, so pick that up. We're also still trying to get into Alberta. Okay, we actually do still have an Alberta partnership, and they're ready for us if we can just get the Canadian border to open. So you be praying that soon here we'll be able to get the Canadian border open so that we can begin coming into Alberta and ministering alongside our brothers and sisters in Canada. We also are just so excited about the Missouri partnership. I believe Rick Hedger's in here. Rick, are you in here? No, he'll be out there at the table. You want to make sure you see Rick Hedger. The Montana partnership has just been phenomenal. Almost every month, they've had guys from Missouri, I think I've been saying Montana. We've had pastors coming from Missouri almost every month into the state looking for opportunities to serve alongside our churches. In fact, because we had that partnership, a Hispanic man in Missouri heard about the partnership, and God had already been working in his heart about Montana, and he actually came to Montana to start our first Hispanic church in Montana. His name is Obed Aguirre, and Emmanuel Baptist Church, Pastor Paul Jones is so impressed with him, and he's so burdened for us to begin reaching the Hispanic community in Montana that Dr. Jones brought him on to Emmanuel Baptist Church staff. And he is serving there now. We're helping to pay for his salary, and Emmanuel is helping to pay for his salary, and they've already got, last I heard, they had 40 Hispanic folks gathered together in Bible study. So that first Hispanic work is already doing well. And that's just the first of what I'm hoping is going to be at least a dozen Hispanic works in Montana. I believe there are more Hispanic folks in this state than we realize, and we have not been reaching them, and we're going to do everything we can to reach them, and this is our first effort at that. So you be praying for Brother Aguirre, and then also praying that God will raise up more men to come in and families to come in to help us reach the Hispanic community in Montana. We just have two board members rotating off, and neither of them are here today, I'm sorry to say. Alan James and Ray Teston have both finished up 2 terms with us on the board. I've got certificates of appreciation that I'll be giving to them at another time. They're not here, but I'd at least like to be able to tell them that you guys expressed your appreciation to them for their 6 years of service on the executive board. So would you just join me in giving them a hand? Six years is a long time in Montana Baptist Life, and they were a part of a lot of important decisions that we needed to make, and I'm going to miss having them on the board. Believe it or not, I'm finishing up 5 years here already. I just can't believe. Oh, that's kind, thank you. I just can't believe that we're already coming to the end of 5 years. And we're trusting that God will give us many more years as well. It's just a wonderful joy and a privilege to be here serving you. Denise and I are just in love with you. We're grateful that God wrote this chapter into our lives, and we're just really loving being here serving you. If I can be of service in any way, if you need me to show up in any way, if you need Denise in any way, all you have to do is tell us, and we'll do everything we can to be there for you. Maybe I can answer a question or two. Okay, Brother KJ, I don't see any. We probably have time for that other video that we weren't able to show. If you want to do that, you want to do that before or after. So there's nobody here from the executive committee. Caleb had a pastoral emergency he had to be at. So fortunately, the executive committee kind of finally resolved that issue on the sexual abuse task force question. I don't know whether you heard it, but they agreed to waive attorney-client privilege. And so I think that was the main question that you had about what that was about. So it wasn't as imperative, I suppose, that Caleb be here. But you may still have a question. Somebody had a question about the International Mission Board's decision to require that all of their missionaries be vaccinated. And I asked Brother Dan Lambert if he would share with us. Can I ask Dan to come? Would you mind? And come share with us. And then if we have time, when we get done with that, we'll show a video that we weren't able to show at the last session. By the way, we couldn't show that video at the last session because you guys stand up there and you talk forever. I know you like that, but we can't let you out on time if we don't start on time. So please be watching the schedule for when we start and do everything you can to be in here when the schedule says we start, and then we'll also do everything we can to finish on time. But Brother Daniel, thanks for your willingness to be here, and just talk to us about that decision at IMB, would you? And KJ, I'll leave it alone from there.
Thanks, Barrett. It's built for tall guys. Hey, I'm just wrapping up my third year as your trustee to the International Mission Board. I want to say thanks. I think the last time I got to report to you was 2 years ago, and I shared with you that I had already received a cool T-shirt, and now I'm pleased to tell you I've also now received a cool dress shirt. So thank you for the opportunity to serve. Yeah, thanks. I will tell you that 2 years of my 3-year term has been during COVID. So I've only had the opportunity to gather about 3 or 4 times with the trustees. Obviously, the highlight of those meetings is always just hearing back from people who are on the front line in the field, just hearing stories about what's happened. So I want to tell you one of those stories real quick, just to let you know what's happening in the world. An affinity group leader from the Affinity of South Asian Peoples asked us, as he shared his report, to remember the family of a man named Satish. Satish was one of the very first believers from an unreached, unengaged people group in northern India. He was attacked by Muslims, doused by acid all over his body, and laid in the hospital for 5 weeks before finally dying just a week ago, yesterday, I think. It was a sad story, and the affinity group leader had met him personally. He shared that his father, who was also a new believer, who had been attending the church in Satish's home, told the police that his son died like our Savior, being faithful to the end. So we hear stories like that, and it just makes us know that there are still real people who are coming to know our Savior because of the gifts that we give and the prayers that we offer and the missionaries that we send who are giving their lives for the cause of the gospel. I'm pleased to share with you that in almost every area, the International Mission Board is celebrating its best year ever. We commissioned 141 new missionaries this past month as a result of a new aggressive recruitment program over the last 2 years. The Lottie Moon Christmas offering met our target goal of $175 million, making that our best year in our 175-year history. A number of churches giving to the Lottie Moon Christmas offering went down by 10% between 2013 and 18, but in the last 3 years has been growing again significantly, for which I would like to say thanks to you who are giving. Perhaps you hear that mission organizations spend the vast majority of their resources on people groups that have already been exposed to the gospel. But I'm pleased to tell you that the International Mission Board currently is investing 91% of our missionaries to among the 3,000 unreached, unengaged people groups is still in existence today. In the last year, 55 new unreached, unengaged people groups have been engaged with the gospel for the very first time as a result of the work of the International Mission Board. That's worth celebrating. So it's an exciting time to be a part of the IMB. I want to tell you two things that are pertinent and then address, the second of which is to address Dr. Duke's question. The first is, if, capital I, capital F, if we in the IMB had personnel in Afghanistan, which I am neither confirming nor denying, if that were the case, I want you to know they have all been evacuated safely just in advance of any hostility. So I can't tell you that, but I can encourage you to pray, because some critical ministries to highly at-risk groups of individuals would have been left behind if we had personnel there. So the whole situation is obviously a political debacle that has created a spiritual conundrum. So please, please pray for new converts. Pray for women and children who might have been involved in ministries left leaderless, who are left in harm's way. So please pray for the situation in Afghanistan. And then secondly, I do want you to know that you may have heard that the IMB has a new policy requiring all personnel to be vaccinated. Let me just start off by saying this. I have not been vaccinated, and I have no intention of being vaccinated. That's totally a personal choice. However, I do want to say this. You need to know that the vaccine has been required of all of our adult personnel at IMB, missionaries and staff. This is true of personnel in countries of service where the vaccine is available. So there are a lot of places in the world that are dramatically different than here in the U.S. So in those countries where you have no access to the vaccine, is not required. We're not going to bring them home to make them get vaccinated. That's what I'm trying to say. I want you to know that they're not being relocated to other countries for that purpose. It is also important for all of us to be aware that during the last 2 years of this pandemic, there was a devastating impact on the work of the IMB globally, in the scope of many millions of dollars with evacuations and relocations and temporary assignments and more. I also want you to know that the vast majority of our missionaries have already been vaccinated prior to this decision coming from the administration. And to date, as of last week when I was in Richmond at the trustee meeting, there have been less than 10 families who have even questioned the mandate, and there's not been one single resignation as a result of that. So I want you to know that. That's my up-to-date report. I suspect that you have opinions about that. So do I. I also would tell you this. I'm going to fly out tomorrow to fly to Memphis, Tennessee to go to a niece's wedding where I will meet my son and my very favorite daughter-in-law. And after the wedding is over, I will ride back to Little Rock, Arkansas with them, and I'm going to stay with them until next Wednesday. I tell you that because they have 2 cats that live in their house. That means that when I come home on Wednesday, I will be stuffy and snotty and wheezy, because we all know Jesus was a dog man, not a cat lover. So I am going to go see them and make this sacrifice because I love them. I will tell you that our missionaries also have opinions about things, but their opinions are second to their call. And they've chosen to go where God's called them to serve, regardless of their opinions. So I'm grateful to tell you that on their behalf. So that's my report, Mr. Director, Mr. President. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to be here until tomorrow, so if you have any questions, you want to know anything else about the IMB or anything else, I'll be happy to chat with you about those things. So thanks for the privilege of representing you.
Isn't it incredible that a gospel opportunity can fit in your hands? It's called an Operation Christmas Child shoebox, and it's filled with fun toys, hygiene items, school supplies, and a personal message. But really, it's much more than that. It's a tangible expression of God's love to introduce Jesus Christ. Churches just like this, when they pack shoeboxes, have a significant gospel impact around the world.
In the beginning, people from this village, they were hard-hearted to receive the gospel. The turning point was when we distributed gift boxes. I saw a great impact. After the distribution, many of children gave their life to Jesus and started with the greatest journey. The greatest journey is so impactful because it's the Word of God. I've seen Jesus putting hope upon the children. God is doing a great work.
If you want something as a pastor where your people can get involved in ministry, something that has maximum impact in the worldwide kingdom of Christ, I mean, what better thing could you do than be involved in Operation Christmas Child? To me, it's a no-brainer.
I have seen firsthand how a shoebox is an opportunity and a tool that opens the door to share the gospel of Jesus Christ.
These boxes open kids' hearts to the fact that there's people all over the world that love them, and what it shows them ultimately is that there's a God that loves them.
This is one of many shoebox distributions we've been doing on the nation of Kiribati.
We have brought tens of thousands of shoebox gifts, and even though it's August, it's Christmas for these children.
Scripture tells us, go throughout all ends of the earth and bring the good news of Jesus Christ to make fishers of men. That's what we've been called to do. And that's what I love about Operation Christmas Child. It knows no borders and knows no boundaries. It's all about sharing the name of Jesus Christ.
Each year, around 11 million gospel opportunities are shared in over 120 countries, and more than 4 million children enroll in the greatest journey and learn to be disciples. The gospel is truly going to the ends of the earth. Your local church is having a massive impact, all because of the simple act of packing a shoebox. These shoebox gifts create an opportunity for entire congregations to fulfill the Great Commission. With every shoebox you pack, your church is empowering and training churches globally to share the gospel. This is truly the Great Commission in action.
Alrighty, so that kind of brings this session to a close. I want to remind everybody to visit the stunts out here. Me and Greg Payton were out there riding bikes while you guys were watching that video, and it's ready to go. So take the time to do that. I want to remind everybody the next session starts at 6:45, so go do dinner on your own. Watch this first, then come back and join us this afternoon. I hear the guy that's speaking is fire. At least that's what the kids tell me nowadays. So thank you, and you're dismissed. Oh, do we need a motion to adjourn? Sorry. Apparently we didn't do that. So is there a motion to adjourn? Chris Richards Emmanuel. Is there a second? Second? Who was that? Mark? Okay, Mark Pritchard. All in favor? Leave. All opposed? Stay here and keep meeting.